Thank you very much. Of course, you cannot clap because you don't know me yet and you don't know what I will say. So that is quite right. Let me really quickly introduce myself. My name is Eddie, and I am responsible for Liferay's marketing efforts not just in Europe, how it says there, but just recently we opened an office in the Middle East, and we've recently also become active in Africa. So this is what we're doing right now from the Ashbourne office, but also through marketing offices throughout Europe. We don't have marketing people here, but we have great partners. Thank you, Peter, for the introduction. So here's a picture of Frankfurt, and there's one thing that we usually don't have in Frankfurt, and there's one thing that we have in Frankfurt. Usually we don't have this kind of weather. But today it was beautiful. It was just like this blue sky. It was a little bit cold. And when I arrived here, it was all cloudy. And my app said that it would be sunshine. So I missed the sunshine, but I was like, it doesn't matter because I'm going to spend this afternoon with lovely people like you who have sunshine in their hearts. Okay, so there's another thing that we have, and that is elevators, right? And I know that a lot of you guys know this because maybe you're around salespeople or you're in sales yourself. There's an elevator pitch. And I wanted to really quickly introduce Liferay to those people of you who don't know Liferay yet as a company. So imagine you are getting with me in one of these elevators, and I would use numbers to introduce Liferay really quickly. One of them is that we are 12 years old. We are a startup from the Los Angeles area in the United States. We're an open source startup, so it started with open source. We're still open source, and we have over 5 million downloads for our software worldwide, and this is growing. We have over 150,000 community members. So when we talk about who develops Liferay, obviously it's the engineers in Madrid, here in Budapest, and all over the world. But we also have 150,000 people in the community, and they're not all active in the same way, but they do contribute to the product, so we're really proud of that. And we have over 700 people working worldwide as a company, so we're really excited about this number. It's a big family. We just spent, in the beginning of last month, middle of last month, we spent a big retreat. The company flew out a lot of people to San Diego, and there were over 700 people present there. It was a really, really good time. And here's the last number that I want to leave you with, and that's a number that we're really, really proud of. This is the amount of investment capital or VC capital or any kind of an outside capital that was invested into Liferay in the last years since we were founded. We're completely homegrown. We have never taken any outside capital, and we're really, really proud of what we've been able to achieve in the last couple of years and the opportunity in different markets to talk to different people all over the world. One more thing I would like to mention in case you don't know it, Gartner, the analyst firm, for years they've been putting us in the same quadrant as Oracle, SAP, Microsoft, and IBM. We are one of the leaders. We are right here, if you can make it out. And that also is a privilege, and that's a testimony to customers like K&H Bank here who are always giving us good reviews when Gartner talks to them. Now, I mentioned that I am from Frankfurt, but I did not grow up in Frankfurt. I grew up in a little village about 45 minutes away. I brought along a Google shot, and as you can see, this is where the village is. It's about 2,000 people living in this small village. And there's not much around there, as you can see, right? Woods, German roads, and fields. Now, let me show you a picture from this village. I really took this just recently a little bit, and you can make it out here. I know that you have Raiffeisen. I'm not sure if they're connected or not, but this used to be the bank in this little village where I grew up, okay? Now, if we zoom out a little bit, obviously, as you can see, this does not work anymore. Nobody comes here to do banking for 20 years anymore, and this is a little bit more than a glorified parking lot. But it used to be, in that community there, the only way to do banking. Do you remember that time? No internet, right? Just phones. You would go, you would fill out sheets of paper. Who remembers that kind of that stuff? Yeah, the other ones are just too young. You know, do I need to introduce you guys to cassette players? You know, we had these things, you put them in the car, you listen to music. You know, this was the time, and it was the only way to do banking. And when a neighbor asked you, which bank should I go to if you wanted to have a local way to do banking, then you went right here. There was no other local way. Now, obviously, it is different. I had a friend from Frankfurt. Her family moved back from Frankfurt to the US, United States of America. They've been living in Europe for quite some time, and they needed to change their bank. And so one time I found this Facebook post, and I'm using it with her permission. She said I could share it freely with people like you. She posted this. She says, all right, Facebook friends, I have to pick between Bank A and Bank B, or Bank 1 and Bank 2 for personal banking, right? And she says, give me some advice about who to pick. I don't know. She just moved there, and in a matter of minutes, this was what happened. People had all kinds of ideas and recommendations, and they were saying Bank 1 is better than Bank 2, Bank 2 is better than Bank 1, and I'm not sure where she ended up, but this is how people nowadays choose their bank. A lot of them ask their friends on social media. It's not just about, okay, there's only one option and I go there, and you find yourself in an environment where you have to compete with others for your customers. And these customers, they are making real experiences, and I would say that in this time and day and age, a lot of the decisions and a lot of our efforts are built around digital logistics. Now bear with me here a little bit, because this has nothing to do with moving physical pieces, boxes, or big containers at the airport or anywhere else. But I believe that every one of us does digital logistics. In fact, I believe that all of life is logistics with the purpose of transformation. It does sound a little philosophical, but I want to invite you on this journey. This morning, I got into a plane and I flew here. It took an enormous amount of logistics to make it happen, right? The plane needed to be fueled up. I took the train to the airport. My app had my boarding pass. I put it there. The app recognized it, scanned my boarding pass. I went through. There was security. There was an enormous amount of logistics involved. And what's the purpose? The purpose was for me to come here, right, and transform, meet new people. We were going to talk together in the roadshow, in the workshops, at this roadshow. It's all about transformation. Now, I have another example that also has to do with the plane. This was a picture that I took flying from Dubai, from a business trip, from a conference, back to Frankfurt. And I think this is somewhere over Iran, right? And I thought, I looked at this, you can see here, this is really from the airplane picture. I think this is beautiful. I found it so beautiful, I thought, hey, I could tweet this or put it on Instagram right now, because the plane that I was in had internet. And that too had an enormous amount of logistics. I think there was satellite stuff involved, I'm not sure, but to have internet when you fly across the world is a pretty amazing thing, and it takes a lot of logistics. Why? Because we can transform our social media account, we can transform the feelings of somebody else who likes beautiful pictures like this, or just my family who was looking forward for me coming home. And finally, right, even when we tell stories like this famous story here in Hungary, what is the purpose of that? Obviously, we want to be entertained, right? But there's also logistics. We want to teach our kids values, or we want to pass on a certain way of living or certain principles, and that we pass on through stories like this. And that too took logistics. And finally, one of my favorite, drinking coffee. It is all about logistics. You grind the coffee, you make the coffee, you drink it, and then there's transformation. You feel happy and you feel energized afterwards. So all of life is logistics with the purpose of transformation. And what is the goal when it comes to digital logistics? We all are in digital logistics, and the goal is to do it well, to do it seamlessly, right? Like at the airport when you scan the app, like when you go shopping and there's the shelves are full, etc., right? All that is seamless logistics. And in digital logistics, here's the challenge. We have data in different systems all over the place. Now, I go to a lot of events like this. I speak to a lot of people in banking, in insurance, in financial services. And here's a quote that I picked up from somebody who has the same last name, but I'm not related to him. He used to be the former CTO of IBM, and this is what he says. He says, many enterprises are choking on their early digitization processes. Especially banks, insurances, and telecoms are in that predicament because they digitize first, right? And probably your bank, if you're working there, or your institution, if you're working there, and you've been working there for a while, you know you guys have systems out there, and there's data all over the place. They used to be state of the art. There's to be a lot of money involved in there, but now they're outdated. And here's the challenge: to do it seamlessly, to do it in a way that works, right? You have to connect it somewhere else. I want to take you briefly out of the banking world to a gentleman that I met a couple years ago, actually, in London. This is IP Abraham. He runs one of the most expensive hotels in London. It's called the Mayfair Hotel. They use Liferay. They have a beautiful site where you can go and book a hotel room. And just recently, I've been on their site. Let me share this quote with you first. Since they used Liferay, right, they saw a constant increase of visitor numbers. And he told me, everyone who comes into our hotel, from the maid to the most senior person, has to go log in through the same system. And they connected all these systems. But what I find beautiful, it's not just internally connected, right? They also do this, right? They advertise things to people according to the calendar. So if it's Christmas, they do Christmas stuff. If it's the National Soccer Championship, you can watch national soccer or international soccer in their cinema that they have in there. And just yesterday was Valentine's Day, so they advertised this. But if you notice down here, right, they don't only have their own platform, they have other important platforms. I want to show this to you because it might be standing in the way here. Twitter, Facebook, you can share this on Pinterest. And then, you know what? One of the things that sparked my interest as a marketeer is the number down here, 199. I was like, really? 199 different platforms? So I clicked on it. And in case you didn't know, all these things are out there. There are platforms out there helping you to advertise, helping you to connect, helping to do digital logistics, right? But it is not easy in this platform world. And there's a lot of stuff out there right now, even from analysts like Gartner, Forrester, or other groups, and they're talking about how to win in this platform world. Because, you know, one thing is clear: if you don't build your own platform, somebody will come along and build one for you or over you. So the saying is platform or be platformed. So great customer experiences, I believe, are built on seamless digital logistics. That means when things fit together, when there's a system that gives you the opportunity or the ability to connect different systems, different platforms, the things that you need, the data that you need, and then make it all one to deliver a really good customer experience. Now, that's the first point that we need, right? The second point, I believe, besides digital logistics, is that we need imagination. Muhammad Ali said this: the man without an imagination, he has no wings, and I think he was right. The goal here would be not just seamless experiences, but frictionless experiences. And here's the challenge. The challenge is lack of innovation and empathy with customers. And not just banks or insurances are guilty of that. Actually, there's a lot of other companies, especially in Germany. You know, I'm not sure if you know, but Germany is not known for great customer service. Everybody who comes from the States to Germany, they complain and say, hey, do you guys even know what customer service means, right? And that stems from a lack of empathy with the customer. But I believe that we can do better. And I wanted to share my banking experience with you, right? I could have taken screenshots of my bank, but I wanted to be respectful to it because I actually like my bank and I'm not about to switch, right? But I just wanted to show you how does it look like when I do banking and what happens when I sign in as a customer. So first of all, you can imagine I did this as good as I could. Here is the bank logo. And this is really important for me, right? And they do a really good job on security. They send me regular updates. They send me warnings if there's a phishing email going around or something like this. So when I log in and I look at the browser, it's HTTPS, right? And I look at the banking logo, I'm safe. So this is really good, right? Security is top. Now when I log in, there's a dashboard, right? And that's already where it starts. It always has the same stuff. It always has the same menu. But you know, when I log in, I'm a little old-fashioned that way, but I always do the same 2 or 3 things. I transfer money, I look up the current statement, the current amount of money that's there, and maybe I change some things around, or I charge a phone of one of my family members, but that's it. But I always have to go through the menu to click me through. So I was like, wouldn't it be something, and this is why I gave it an average, wouldn't it be something if only the things that I usually do would come up first? Now the next one is Number Central, right? That's there where I see my numbers, where the things are. And there too, I have to click 2 times before I actually see the numbers, right? And that's for me as a customer. If you add up all these clicks, it's a little bit too much. I only have the same question again and again. Why do I have to click again and again, right? And then here's a personal contact. Now that I find poor because there's a picture of the person who is my contact, my personal contact there, and there's a phone number. And I in the last couple of years, I used it 2 times to call somebody. And I never got that person. Now, I expect if there's a personal contact there, I as a customer, and I'm probably sure that your customers as well, expect not maybe for the person to be there all the time, but then not to get some call center instead. Otherwise, just advertise the call center. And then, right, I find this funny. There's also a news section in my bank, and it only shows up when I'm logged in. Now, you know, it has world news. Depending on how your numbers look like, this could be either good or bad news for you, right? I mean, if you read about Trump or if you read about other things, you know, it's different things. And I've always wondered, why do they put news there right in my banking? But they must have a reason. But it does not appeal to me. So here's my digital banking experience. And here's the thing that I want to leave you with, right? We talk about the environment. We talk about the customer experience. And we try to do it the best way we can. And I think my bank is actually doing a really good job, right? But we act like we own the effect a lot of times. And that is just not true. You know, we own the environment, the digital environment. We own the retail bank. When you walk into a bank, of course, that is our space and we can design it the way we want to. But it is false to think that we own the effect. Let me give you an example of that. This is not a banking example, but this is an example of when my family made a purchase last year. And that purchase actually started on my mobile phone. My family, or my wife and I, we were looking for some chairs for quite some time. So one time I got an email from a design manufacturer, and they had these chairs, and I was like, wow, this is amazing, right? And let me tell you, before you zone out, this applies, doesn't matter if you buy chairs or if you buy a car, right? If you buy a bike or if you go shopping for clothes or maybe for your vacation. This applies everywhere. This principle applies everywhere. And I believe it applies because it is universal. And we're going to talk about this in the workshops later on. But just to give you a teaser, here's my mobile experience, but also my entire experience of how this went down with the chairs. The 7 phases of how it went down, right? I tried to draw this again. Right here, this is a 10, this is 5, this is how things went, this is as time went along. And just to let you know, we were really excited about the chairs, but Germans, by category, they don't give 10s, right? So it's right here, this is an 8 or a 9, right? So this is how it started. There was a big expectation. There's chairs, we finally found them, we ordered them online. And then it was only surpassed when the packages arrived at my place, right? The chairs finally got there and we were very, very happy. But then as you can see, something happened. 2 of the chairs did not meet the standards that we had, right? So it was a downer. It was like, okay, we need a certain amount of chairs. What are we going to do now? They delivered them all the way to our door. But then I heard from my neighbor that the customer service of this company is actually really good. Okay? So I said, okay, this got to be good. So I called the number. And I consulted with them, right? And said, hey, 2 of the chairs are broken. And we communicated with them over email as well, right? And here's my favorite part. We negotiated. I said, hey, can you send me 2 new chairs? They said, oh no, we're out. I'm sorry. They were so popular. They're gone. And so I negotiated and I said, okay, then I would like to have a discount and I'll have these chairs repaired on my own. And now currently we are in the evaluation stage, right? And here are the 7 stages. And if you can look at it, you probably went through the same stages the last time you bought something, right? Something maybe was right or wrong, or maybe this didn't break down, but you probably had a similar experience as this. Now, here, this is where a lot of the customer experience folks say, here's what we have to keep in mind, right? One would think, okay, Eddie, let's evaluate your customer experience and let's take the average out of that, right? Let's take the average out of your chair buying experience. Let's take the average of your banking experience. Let's take the average of your shopping experience. But it doesn't work that way. Here is how we measure customer experience as people. It's not the average and we draw a line and it's about 7.5. That's pretty good, right? It's actually the lowest of our experience. It's the lowest number of our experience. That's what's gonna stick with us when we think about the company. That's what's gonna stick with us when we think about the experience and the customer service. And so when we look at that, right, we have to imagine that the customer is going through something, is going through the phases, and here's what's critical, right? Here's what's critical. Out there's so much stuff going on. There's so much stuff going on. This is a picture of Melbourne, Australia. There's a bank out there. They had a lot of a retail space, right? And they said, okay, we're gonna go and keep pace with the digital transformation, and we're gonna close all of our retail stores, and we're going to become completely an online bank. They got an award for that. It's one of our Liferay's customers in Australia doing actually really well, right? So this is an example of how people are thinking, okay, what do people actually want, and how can we respond to what our company needs and what the people need? But here's another thing. I was just recently, 2 months ago, I was in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. And somebody in that context told me, you know what, for us, we see a higher demand of physical banking. So we're not closing down retail banking. We're actually opening up new branches. So it is different, but what we can say about the customer experience, right? No matter if you're opening retail banking or closing retail banking, no matter if you're doing native app or however you're doing it with your mobile strategy, one thing is for certain, right? Your customer needs to be understood. Let me show you a picture of my son. He is 10 years old, right? He has a lot of Legos. He's still playing. He's going to school. But soon, right, in a couple years, he will be on the market for a bank account. He'll be on the market for insurance, right? And if you just indulge me for a moment, and if you just look into his eyes, there's a lot of passion there. There's a lot of dreams there. There's a lot of stuff going on there, right? And we need to connect with our customers in order to give them a great customer experience. We need to look, so to speak, into the eyes and ask them, what do they actually really need? And how can we respond to that as an enterprise? Now, great customer experiences are built on seamless digital logistics, and I believe they're also built on brave imagination of the customer's needs. If we're not ready to think about what the customer needs next, or what the customer needs in this environment, then we will miss out on something very important. Now, I want to finish up this presentation with 3 points. Right? Because I talked a lot about standards and I talked about how to build things in digital logistics, but I want to give you, in the last couple of minutes, 3 points that I believe that are very crucial for us and that we can take along home and do what I think is really important as the next step. So first, I would suggest start with the why. Always start with why. There's this lady, she is quite famous actually in certain circles. She's not alive anymore, Helen Keller. She was born deaf and blind, right? And somebody asked her one time, what is worse than being deaf and blind? And she said, if you have sight but no vision. You need to have a vision for your project. And I'm not sure what your responsibility there is there or not, but if you don't start with what you can accomplish and what you are dreaming of and what your customers are dreaming of, then you are gonna fall short of what you actually have as a potential project manager, a company, etc. Now, integrate digital and analog is just as important. This is the second step. There's this big hotel, it's called the Ritz-Carlton Hotels, and this gentleman, Simon Cooper, he's often asked this question, right? Can employees of the Ritz-Carlton really spend $2,000 per day per guest? Here's how it works, right? If you are at a hotel and something happens, something breaks, right? You miss your flight, there's something spilled on your shirt or whatever, every employee of that hotel has a budget of $2,000 per day to make that customer happy, to make it right or to delight them. And that's amazing, right? But he says this is not about the money, it's symbolic. And this is something that I believe is missing nowadays in the customer service culture. And this is where we can point and make points with our customers if we take that into account. Integrate the analog and the digital. And the final one, bring your energy. Now, I don't know what you're up against in your project management team, in your current environment, in your current scenario, but I want to tell you this story. And this story comes from this man, Booker T. Washington. He was a human rights activist in the United States, and he tells the story of a ship stranded at sea. Right, for a long time they were at sea and they didn't have any more drinking water. Finally they see land, they're coming closer to the land, and they are really in a really bad shape. And they see another ship, and the ship is coming to them, and they say, we need drinking water, please give us drinking water. And the people from the other ship, they say, well, you know what, just throw down your bucket wherever you are right now, over the side of the ship. And they said, well, all around us there's ocean, there's salt water, we need drinking water, please give us drinking water. And they say, just throw down your bucket. And so somebody finally throws down a bucket overboard, they bring up the water, and sure enough, it's perfectly sweet drinking water. It turns out this was in the South America, there's an intake from the Amazon River, and there was sweet water flowing into the ocean, and it was perfectly well and drinkable. Now, why do I say this? I know that in this environment, and maybe in your situation, it's not easy. Right? But I want to encourage you to bring your energy and throw down your bucket wherever you are, because then you will succeed and then you will take your project forward. And with that, we hope you to be of help, and we hope to be of encouragement, and we hope to be of service. And this is why we're doing this roadshow, and we are very, very happy to be here with you. And for that, I wish you from this stage and hopefully in personal conversations, much, much luck and success. Thank you.